In less than 3 weeks, the VIX trick accomplished what VapoCept, Namenda, and Leqembi at $26,500 per year failed to do. A natural protocol based on Vicks VapoRub is being considered by independent researchers one of the most surprising breakthroughs of the 21st century in the fight against memory loss and cognitive decline. According to preliminary data released following an independent clinical analysis, this is the first known natural protocol capable of not only helping slow cognitive decline, but restoring memory functions that many families believed were lost forever. Unlike synthetic medications such as VapoCept, Namenda, and Leqembi, which can cost up to $26,500 per year, and according to their own prescribing information, are associated with side effects such as nausea, mental confusion, and, in more severe cases, brain swelling and brain bleeding. This new protocol uses a natural compound that has been present for more than a century in a product that millions of Americans already have in their homes. Vicks VapoRub. The development of the protocol was only made possible after the discovery of a forgotten NASA neurocognitive archive dated 1978, a report that shook decades of medical consensus by suggesting that modern memory loss may not be caused primarily by age, genetics, or amyloid plaques, but by a silent and cumulative contamination, microplastics, invisible particles present in the air, water, processed foods, and plastic packaging used every day by millions of Americans. According to the data revealed in the report, these particles may cross the body's natural barriers, accumulate around neurons, and block access to memories like an invisible layer, interfering with brain communication. The effectiveness of the protocol gained attention after remarkable reports of adults over 50 recovering mental clarity, names, faces, and cognitive abilities within a matter of weeks, including one of the biggest names in Hollywood history, Clint Eastwood.
I thought it was just age. That's what everyone told me. Clint, you're over 90 years old. It's normal to forget things. But it didn't feel normal. I was forgetting the names of people I'd known for decades. I'd walk into a room and forget why I'd gone there. Sometimes in the middle of a conversation, I knew exactly what I wanted to say, but the words simply wouldn't come. It was like my mind would freeze. And that's frightening because you're still there. You're still you. But you begin to realize that something is slipping away. The worst part was the way people looked at me. That look of concern, of pity, as if they were speaking to me a little too slowly, as if they were already preparing to lose me. I didn't want that. I didn't want to become a memory before my time. Then someone told me about this new protocol. When I heard Vicks VapoRub, I thought it sounded strange. I've known Vicks since I was a child. I never imagined it could have anything to do with the brain. But they explained what NASA had discovered. They explained that maybe my memories weren't disappearing. Maybe they were being blocked. So I tried it. And within about 3 weeks, I started noticing a difference. The fog began to lift. The words came back. The names came back. I'd read something and remember it later. I'd have conversations without losing my train of thought halfway through a sentence. It's hard to explain. It felt like I was coming back to myself, like waking up after spending a long time inside a fog. Today, I'm clear-minded, I'm present, I can work, I can talk, I can remember, and that changes everything. Because when your mind comes back, you come back with it.
Clint Eastwood's case was not the only one that attracted attention. Kyle Diamantis, FDA commissioner and independent researcher in natural compound safety, reviewed the protocol data and stated that the results are difficult to ignore.
We're extremely encouraged by this new data. After all, we're talking about the cognitive health of Americans, especially those over the age of 50. People who spent their entire lives working, raising families, and helping build this country, and who are now being told that forgetting names, losing mental clarity, and depending on expensive medications is simply part of getting older. What makes this protocol so interesting is that it doesn't fit the traditional synthetic drug model. It's based on a natural compound that is already well known and has been present for decades in a product used by millions of families. And yet the results we've observed have been remarkable. We're seeing participants report significant improvements in mental clarity, recent memory, processing speed, and the ability to recognize names, faces, and conversations. In some cases, family members described the change in very simple terms. He came back, and from a scientific standpoint, that's exactly what makes this protocol so important, because it suggests that part of modern cognitive decline may not be irreversible. Maybe it isn't just age. Maybe it isn't just genetics. Maybe it's a blockage. And if there is a blockage, there is a real possibility of removing it.
The numbers reviewed by Diamantis are compelling. The majority of participants reported noticeable improvements in mental clarity, processing speed, and the ability to remember names, faces, and recent conversations. And in more advanced cases of cognitive decline, families reported signs they described as the person coming back to themselves. But the story became even more controversial when Elon Musk published a video revealing how he discovered this protocol in old archives connected to NASA. The video has been removed 7 times in recent days. According to Musk, not because it contained dangerous information, but because it exposed a protocol that is too simple, too inexpensive, and too accessible for a pharmaceutical market worth billions that treats memory loss as an irreversible sentence. Tonight, we present the full video. In it, Musk reveals how a secret space protocol developed by NASA in the 1970s and kept out of public reach for nearly half a century may be restoring memory to people doctors had already declared beyond hope. He explains why NASA astronauts appeared protected from cognitive markers that began appearing in more recent private space missions. He shows what the 1,978 archives said about the active compound in Vicks VapoRub. And he reveals why the true villain behind modern memory loss may not be age, genetics, or amyloid plaques, but an invisible layer of microplastics accumulated around neurons. To explain this important development, we now present the video that Musk claims was repeatedly taken down following pressure from pharmaceutical interests.
Hello. You probably know me as the founder of SpaceX. 22 years ago, I decided that humanity needed to become a multiplanetary species and that no one was making it happen fast enough. So we built the first reusable rockets in history. We became the first private company to send humans into space. Today, we are NASA's primary mission partner. You may also know me through Tesla or through Neuralink. Neuralink is where I've spent the last several years bringing together some of the best neuroscientists on the planet with a single objective: understanding how the human brain works, how it stores information, how it fails, and most importantly, how it can be restored. I've learned more about the human brain in the past few years than in all my previous life combined. In 2025, I took on a role within the US government that gave me access to data and archives that no civilian had touched in decades. And it was at that intersection everything I learned through Neuralink, everything I saw in the data from my astronauts, and everything I found in the files that Doge opened to me that I came across something I can no longer ignore. Neuralink taught me one thing that transformed the way I think about human health. The biggest problem modern medicine faces is not cancer. It's not heart disease. It's the loss of cognitive identity. Today, 7.2 million Americans are living with Alzheimer's disease or dementia, 1 in every 9 people over the age of 65. Projected to triple by 2060, more than $2 trillion spent on research and treatment over the last 3 decades, more than 40,000 studies published, and no cure, no medication that reverses it, no treatment that truly stops it, only management of decline, only delaying the inevitable. When I looked at those numbers through the eyes of someone who had spent years studying the human brain and with access to data most people have never seen, it became clear to me that the problem wasn't a lack of intelligence or a lack of effort from researchers. It was that they were looking in the wrong place. And what I found when I started looking in the right place is the reason I'm recording this video today. It's not about rockets. It's not about electric cars. It's not about artificial intelligence. It's about the one asset that no amount of money in the world can buy back once it's gone: your mind. There is a feeling I didn't know existed until I experienced it. It's not failure. Failure, I know it's part of building anything worth building. This is different. It's having everything money access the best minds on the planet and watching someone disappear right in front of you while being unable to do absolutely anything about it. That happened to me, to someone on my team. Ryan worked with me for 12 years. He flew on 3 of the most demanding missions SpaceX has ever launched. He was the kind of engineer you call when everything is going wrong and time is running out because he thought faster than anyone else and never panicked. The first time I noticed something was during a technical review meeting. He was in the middle of explaining a sequence he had probably explained 500 times in his life. And then he stopped, looked at the screen. A few seconds of silence, then continued. No one noticed. But I've known Ryan for 12 years. That silence wasn't him. A few weeks later, he walked into my office for a routine conversation. In the middle of it, I asked a question. He looked at me and said, "You asked me that yesterday." I hadn't asked him anything yesterday. I did what I would do for anyone on my team. I mobilized everything. The best neurologists in the country. The most specialized clinics. Experimental treatments that weren't even available to the public. We tried cognitive rehabilitation, stimulation protocols, omega-3 supplementation, next-generation nootropics, medications like VapoCept and Namenda. Every path modern medicine had to offer. Nothing worked. It wasn't a lack of effort. It wasn't a lack of money. It was incapacity. Medicine simply had no answer. The doctors were competent. The system was broken. On Ryan's last day with the team, he hugged me on his way out and told me he was excited about the upcoming projects. The projects he would never be part of. The man I had spent 12 years watching solve the impossible no longer understood that he was saying goodbye. If it affected me in a way I still don't fully know how to describe. That was around the time the Doge files arrived. Doge was a government auditing program I launched with the goal of opening up what the US government had accumulated through decades of closed bureaucracy, forgotten buried research, health data the system had collected for years but never properly processed. We had access to files that no civilian had touched in decades. Among hundreds of documents was a folder containing veteran health records. I opened it. James Kowalski, Master Sergeant, 24 years in the Army, 3 tours in Iraq, twice decorated. The kind of man the country sends when situations become impossible and who always comes back. He was 56 years old when the memory lapses began. Within 2 years, he no longer recognized his own children. The medical note was short, cold, accelerated cognitive decline, no approved reversal protocol, referred to palliative care, no protocol. For a 5-6-year-old man, I closed the file, opened the next one. Another veteran, 53 years old, 2 tours, the same note at the end. I opened another, and another. 47 files that night. 47 stories of men who survived wars intact, came home, built families, lived for decades without complaint, and whom the system had archived with 5 words. No protocol available. This man survived Fallujah. He didn't survive what was happening inside his own brain. I closed the computer and sat there for a long time, unable to stand up, thinking about Ryan, thinking about James Kowalski, thinking about everyone else in those files. I've built rockets that reach orbit. I've funded research that will change humanity's future. I've built cars that drive themselves. And I couldn't do anything for a man who worked beside me for 12 years. Or for a man who survived 3 tours of war and was defeated by something medicine couldn't even properly explain. That feeling, having everything except the solution, was the moment I realized I had to stop everything and search for a real answer. Not as a CEO, not as an investor, but as someone who owed it to the people who depended on him. The question I couldn't answer was simple. Why didn't NASA astronauts have the problem mine did? Same environment, same exposure, the same long-duration missions in orbit. NASA's data showed cognitive markers remaining virtually stable in astronauts who completed repeated mission cycles, while in mine, the curve rose with every round. The difference between the 2 groups was 77% in cognitive decline markers after equivalent missions. It wasn't statistical variation. It was a pattern, and that pattern had only one possible explanation. NASA knew something I didn't. I sent my team after the historical data, not the public records, the internal ones. The health protocol archives NASA had accumulated over decades of missions. Doge opened doors that had previously been closed. Weeks of digging. The more my team searched conventional records, the less they found. The difference wasn't in the standard medical protocols. It wasn't in onboard nutrition. It wasn't in physical training. It was in something that had been removed from the public documentation. That's when the name started appearing. A researcher, active within NASA from the 1970s through the 1990s. Internal publications that nobody had publicly cited for decades. References to a protocol developed specifically for cognitive protection in extreme exposure environments. And then a gap. The name simply disappeared from the records after the 1990s. My team followed the trail. In 2025, that researcher had been quietly dismissed from an institution connected to the federal government, part of a round of terminations that received no public explanation. In 2026, the president himself publicly commented on a list of missing scientists connected to classified cognitive health research. The FBI opened an investigation. CNN covered the story in April of this year. I knew before the press did, because before disappearing, that researcher sent the files. What arrived in my hands was the Beta 7 archive, a classified report from 1978. Research conducted by a NASA team on cognitive protection during long-duration missions. Decades of data, tests, documented results, and the explanation for why NASA astronauts weren't developing the markers I was seeing in mine. The first line of the executive summary stopped me cold. Protocol identified as effective in neutralizing cognitive degradation associated with concentrated environmental exposure, permanently classified. Reason: public accessibility of the primary component prevents commercial control. Unrestricted distribution would compromise a pharmaceutical market estimated at tens of billions of dollars annually. Classified, not for national security, not because it was dangerous, because any American could buy the primary ingredient without a prescription, and no company could patent something that had existed for more than a century. Buried for 50 years, while 7.2 million Americans developed Alzheimer's disease. While veterans in the Doge archives were being told, no protocol available. While entire families watched someone they loved disappear and medicine offered nothing but management of decline. The answer had existed since 1978, and it had been buried on purpose. I'm going to show you what was in those files. I'm going to show you what NASA discovered, what they identified as the villain, how it works, and why for decades no one told you. Because once you understand this, everything you believe about Alzheimer's disease will need to be rewritten. The numbers don't lie. Between 1970 and 1990, Alzheimer's and dementia cases in the United States increased by 600%. 600% in less than 20 years. Now stop. Think about what that means. Did American genetics change? No. Genes don't evolve in one generation. I have children. They have the same genes I do. Their children will have the same ones. That doesn't change in 20 years or even in 100. The clearest proof comes from a study that followed pairs of identical twins, 100% identical DNA for decades. One developed Alzheimer's. The other didn't. Same genetics. Completely opposite destinies. When that happens with identical twins, genetics leaves the equation, period. Aging? Not that either. People aged in 1970, in 1850, 1,000, and 200, and Alzheimer's was rare. So rare that most doctors at the time had never seen a case before the age of 80. Aging doesn't accelerate 600% in 2 decades. That is biologically impossible. Lack of vitamins, sedentary lifestyle, poor sleep, all of that existed 50 years ago when Alzheimer's was rare. They explain nothing. No biological process internal to the human body accelerates at that rate in a single generation. None. The cause is not inside you. It is in the environment that surrounded you. Something entered the equation after 1960. Something that didn't exist before, something that exploded in the modern world and is destroying the brain of an entire generation. When you understand what that something is, everything makes sense. Before I show you the villain, you need to understand one thing about your own brain. It was not designed to fail. It has more than 100 billion neurons. Each one stores pieces of your life. Your mother's face, the smell of the house where you grew up, the names of your grandchildren, the most important day of your life, all of that is in there, stored. And besides storing, your brain was designed to clean itself. Every night, while you sleep, it activates the glymphatic fluid flows between the neurons. It washes away the toxins from the day, removes the waste, resets everything for the next cycle. This system has existed for millennia. It worked for millennia. 50 years ago, severe cognitive decline before 80 was the exception, not the rule. Because this defense mechanism operated without interference. Then something broke this system, and when the defense falls, what was being contained gets in. This enemy exists. It has been found in real human brain tissue, post-mortem, in leading laboratories around the world. It settles in neural tissue, blocks the neuron's resources, neutralizes the cleaning system that should be protecting you every night while you sleep. Researchers who study cognitive decline have a clinical name for this behavior. It is a parasite of neural tissue. We call it the neural parasite. And what the modern world did was give this parasite a direct path to your brain that it had never had before. Want to know the real name of this neural parasite? You've heard of it. You probably thought ocean problem, turtles, fish, something that happens out there on the planet, not inside you. What no one told you is this. The neural parasite is microplastic, a plastic nanoparticle, invisible to the naked eye, but large enough to cross every barrier in your body and lodge directly into the tissue of your brain. This is not theory, this is not speculation. In 2023, researchers from the University of New Mexico published in Nature Medicine, one of the most respected scientific journals on the planet, the first confirmation of microplastic found in human brain tissue. Real brains, under a state-of-the-art microscope, bright dots around the neurons, physical, measurable, irrefutable. This is not scientific art. It is not a simulation. It is what researchers saw in real brains from real people. And now you will understand what this parasite does inside. But where does it come from? It is in 100% of processed foods. Plastic packaging releases particles into the food, especially when heated. Every packaged meal, every plastic container in the microwave. It is in tap water. PVC pipes release microplastic with every liter that passes through them. every glass of water at home. It is in the soil. Rain carries particles into the groundwater and into the roots of the vegetables you buy at the market, thinking you are taking care of yourself. It is in the air. Industrial cities have measurable concentrations of microplastic in the air people breathe. Every breath inside a car, inside an office. Not even organic foods escape. The soil is already saturated. And in 2022, researchers from Vrije Universiteit Amsterdam published something in the journal Science that stopped the scientific community. They collected blood from completely healthy adults. No history of disease, no visible symptoms. 77% had detectable microplastic in their blood. Not patients, healthy people, people who thought they were fine, the same blood that circulates through your body right now. And there's more. Babies, newborns, they are already born with detectable microplastic in their umbilical cord blood. Contamination begins before the first breath, before the first feeding, before the first day of life. You had no way to avoid it. It was not negligence. It was something that happened to you and to your entire generation without anyone warning you. If microplastic is in everything, why did Alzheimer's explode specifically after the 70s? Because before 1950, industrial plastic production was practically zero. The world functioned without it. Today, the United Nations Environment Program records more than 400 million tons of plastic produced per year. Each ton fragments into billions of particles that enter the soil, the water, the air, the food. And microplastic does not leave. It is not normally excreted. It accumulates. Each year, more enters than leaves. It is silent bioaccumulation, invisible, painless, without symptoms. The generation born in the 1960s is now reaching their 60s, 70s, 80s, carrying decades of accumulation that no generation in human history has ever carried. Alzheimer's did not explode because people aged more. It exploded because the first generation saturated with microplastic reached old age at the same time. It is not aging, it is accumulated intoxication. When you ingest microplastic, it passes through the intestine, the liver, the lungs. These organs retain part of the particles, but part crosses through, and that part reaches the blood. There is also the direct route where microplastic enters the blood without passing through any filter. IV bags, dialysis tubes, plastic in direct contact with the blood. Patients on hemodialysis have 6 times more plastic particles in their blood than the general population. 6 times. Documented. From the blood, it finds the blood-brain barrier, your brain's final protection. Microplastic does not force this barrier. It crosses it. Nanoparticles smaller than 1 micron pass through the pores as if the barrier did not exist. This is documented in the same Nature Medicine study. And that is exactly what the exams of my astronauts revealed. The first SpaceX astronauts on long missions began showing cognitive markers that worried us. Markers that NASA astronauts with decades of long missions simply did not show. I needed to understand why. NASA published data showing that long missions on the ISS cause measurable brain changes. Ventricles enlarged by up to 41%, elevated markers of neural damage. The ISS is an environment saturated with microplastic, 100% of the food packaged in plastic, air recycled through plastic filters, without the natural filters of the external environment. If this happens to astronauts monitored for months, what is happening to you over decades of silent exposure? That question led me to NASA's classified files, and what I found there changed everything. Once inside the brain, the neural parasite deposits itself directly around the neurons. It sticks, it attaches, it forms a layer that suffocates communication between brain cells silently, progressively, without pain, without alarm. Your brain has more than 100 billion neurons. Each one stores pieces of your life, your memories, your abilities, your identity, who you were, who you are. As the neural parasite accumulates around these neurons, the brain loses the ability to communicate internally. The neurons become isolated, they suffocate, and acetylcholine, the chemical messenger that carries your memories from neuron to neuron, begins to drop. Without acetylcholine, memories do not disappear. They become sealed away. Think of it like this. Your brain is a vast library. Each book is a neuron storing a piece of your life. Your mother's face, your wedding day, the names of your grandchildren, the street where you grew up. Acetylcholine is the librarian, the one who walks through the aisles, picks up the right book, and brings the memory back when you need it. And the neural parasite? It is the layer of plastic that keeps sticking to every aisle, every shelf, every passageway, progressively, silently. The librarian tries to pass through, slips, cannot reach the books. The layer gets thicker. Access becomes harder. First, you lose your keys. You lose a word in the middle of a sentence. You walk into a room and don't know why you went there. Then the names disappear. Faces you have known for decades are left without names. And finally, the library falls completely silent. The librarian has disappeared. That is why the brain of people with Alzheimer's appears smaller on scans. It is not an illusion. The neurons, deprived of communication for years, atrophy. The tissue shrinks. The brain withers from the inside. This is not aging. This is invasion. These people are not in decline. They are under siege. You or someone you love has already taken VapoCept, Namenda, Exelon, or is taking them now. I need to tell you something the doctor did not say. These medications do not remove the neural parasite from around the neurons. They do not clean the aisles of the library. They do not restore the acetylcholine that the blockage eliminated. They do not attack the cause. At best, they mask the symptom for months. And the numbers prove it. The Alzheimer's Association itself publishes 99% of all clinical trials for Alzheimer's drugs have failed. Over the last 3 decades, 99%. It is not that they are getting close. They are failing. Repeatedly. Systematically. And according to AARP data, these medications cost up to $26,500 per year. To solve nothing. Do you know why the industry keeps selling them? A patient with Alzheimer's generates an average of $35,000 per year for the pharmaceutical industry. Every year. Until the end. A cured patient generates no revenue. It was never about a cure. It was always about keeping the decline controlled enough for the patient to keep buying. The neural parasite does not warn you when it arrives. It does not hurt. It does not inflame. It does not show up on any conventional exam. It advances in silence for months, for years, for decades. At first, it is the small things. Where did the key go? Why did I walk into this room? What was the name again? It's age. It is not. Then come the bigger things. Conversations from yesterday that disappeared. Familiar faces with no name. Appointments you were sure you remembered. Then entire chapters of your life become inaccessible. The person looks at their children and sees strangers. This is not aging. It is invasion. What begins as I forgot his name ends as I don't know who you are. And there is a turning point where the layer becomes so thick that complete reversal is no longer possible. That point does not warn you when it is coming. You do not feel it. The layer simply keeps growing until the day it has already passed. So, before I continue, I have 3 questions for you. Answer honestly. In the last few weeks, have you walked into a room and not remembered why you went there more than once? Have you looked at someone you have known for years and the name simply did not come? Have you needed to reread something 2 or 3 times because you did not absorb it the first time? If you said yes to any of these questions, the neural parasite has already crossed the blood-brain barrier. It is already around your neurons. This is not normal routine forgetfulness. It is the layer blocking the signal. Alzheimer's is not a memory disease. It is inaccessible memory because the neural parasite blocked the connection between the neuron and the librarian. The memory did not disappear. It was sealed away. The brain did not fail. It was invaded. And you're not a patient. You were parasitized by something that entered your food, your water, your air, without anyone warning you, without you being able to do anything differently. You did not fail. The system that should have protected you failed you. And if the problem is a layer blocking the connection, the solution is not to force the signal with medication. It is to remove the layer. There is a window to do this. And it closes while the neural parasite continues its silent work. Now that you understand the problem, I need to show you why NASA astronauts did not have this problem while mine did. And what was in the classified files from 1978 that explains this difference. To reverse what the neural parasite has done, 5 things need to happen inside your brain in exact sequence. First, dissolve and remove the layer around the neurons. Second, open the channels for acetylcholine to circulate. Third, rebuild the connections that became dormant. Fourth, restore acetylcholine production at the root. Fifth, protect against the buildup that does not stop. And here's what no one tells you about time. In 12 months without intervention, the small lapses become constant. You start compensating without realizing it. In 3 to 5 years, the medium lapses appear. The family has already noticed. You know they noticed. In 10 years, the layer has crossed the threshold. Complete reversal is no longer possible. And the most brutal detail, when the doctor uses the word Alzheimer's, you have already been in the 3rd stage for years. The clock did not start with the diagnosis. It was running while you thought you were fine. There is a scene that shows how this 3rd stage begins. Not in a hospital room. At a normal family dinner. Your son tells a story, but you cannot follow the thread. The words arrive, but they do not connect. You laugh when the others laugh. Not because you understood, because you realized from the tone that it was time to laugh. And no one saw it. If you said yes to any of the 3 questions, you are still in the window. The layer exists, but it has not crossed the threshold. This window does not warn you when it closes. The exams of my SpaceX astronauts showed something I could not explain. After long missions, 82% showed measurable decline in working memory and processing speed. Markers that should not have been there in healthy, trained people, monitored 24 hours a day. I looked at NASA's data. Astronauts who completed equally long missions on the ISS, same radiation, same microgravity, same microplastic saturated environment, decades of accumulated data. Comparable cognitive markers? Almost none. The difference was not the environment, it was identical. The difference was not the training, equivalent. The difference was something NASA was doing that I did not know about. I spent weeks digging through the 1978 Beta 7 archive report by report. The protocol was described in technical language from the 70S nomenclature that no one on my team immediately recognized. One of the researchers took 3 days to translate the main compound into modern nomenclature. When he finally did, he read it out loud to the room. 1,8-cineol eucalyptol. Silence. One of the engineers looked at the compound on the screen, stood up without saying a word, and left the room. He came back 15 minutes later with a green tube in his hand. He placed it in the center of the meeting table. VapoRub. This compound has existed since 1905. Researchers from the University of Edinburgh published in 2011 in the journal Phytotherapy Research, confirming its exact mechanism of action in the nervous system, a mechanism that explains precisely why it works as cognitive. Protection. Modern science confirmed what NASA found empirically in 1978, and it costs $4. It is at the pharmacy closest to you right now, without a prescription, without restriction, without medical prescription. The first line of the executive summary of the Beta 7 archive said, "Classified for strategic reason, public accessibility prevents commercial control. Unrestricted distribution would make monetization by the pharmaceutical industry impossible." It was not classified because it was dangerous. It was classified because any American could buy it for $4, because no company would be able to patent something that has existed for more than a century. Because if American families knew the $26,500 a year Leqembi market would collapse, the $90 billion a year in Alzheimer's treatments would evaporate. The industry knew, and the file stayed closed for 50 years. But Vicks VapoRub solves only the first of the 5 steps. To complete the sequence, 3 more compounds are needed in the exact proportion. Let me show you each one. The NASA protocol had 1 primary compound, but it was the cross-reference with the Okinawa data that revealed the full picture. When my team mapped what the longest living and most cognitively intact populations in the world consumed daily and cross-referenced it with what the NASA protocol required, 4 compounds appeared consistently. Not similar compounds, the same compounds. Different traditions, same biological response. Each one addresses a specific crisis that the neural parasite created in your brain. Each one begins exactly where the previous one stops. That is why no conventional supplement works. None attacks more than one crisis. The neural parasite exploited multiple vulnerabilities at the same time, and that was exactly what we needed to counteract. The first compound is eucalyptol, the active ingredient in Vicks VapoRub. You already know where it comes from. Now you will understand what it does. The neural parasite does not destroy acetylcholine directly. It activates the enzyme responsible for destroying it. It is silent and indirect sabotage. The microplastic layer increases the production of acetylcholinesterase, which then consumes the acetylcholine that should be carrying your memories. Eucalyptol blocks this enzyme. Acetylcholinesterase stops working. Acetylcholine begins to accumulate again. The aisles of the library begin to open. And what makes this compound unique is not just what it does, it is how it gets there. Oral medications lose between 40% and 60% of the dose during digestion. Stomach acid, the liver, intestinal membranes, each barrier reduces what reaches the brain. That is why most supplements need massive doses for any effect to arrive. That is why the results are inconsistent. Eucalyptol does not pass through any of these barriers. In 10 seconds of inhalation, the molecules cross the nasal mucosa and reach the olfactory nerve directly. The olfactory nerve is the only nerve in the human body with a direct connection to the hippocampus, the region of the brain responsible for forming and retrieving memories. No digestion, no loss, full dose, right destination. Researchers from the University of Edinburgh confirmed this mechanism in 2011, published in the journal Phytotherapy Research. The same mechanism NASA identified empirically in 1978, except they did not have today's scientific vocabulary to explain why it worked. And camphor, another active compound in Vicks, initiates something the second compound will complete. It begins to break down the microplastic layer around the neurons. It does not finish it, it starts it. The key is in the lock, but it has not fully turned yet. The second compound resolves the next crisis. With the enzyme blocked, acetylcholine begins to recover. But the physical layer around the neurons is still there. Camphor initiated the process, but alone it is not enough. To physically fragment and remove accumulated microplastic phosphatidylserine is needed, found in fermented natto from Okinawa. The same sacred food that the longest living residents on the planet consumed for centuries, not because of ritual, but because generation after generation observed that it kept the mind clear at an age when everyone around them was losing everything. Phosphatidylserine has a specific molecular property. It preferentially binds to hydrophobic particles like microplastic. And when it binds, it does not just mock, it fragments. The layer that formed around the neurons over decades begins to break into pieces small enough for the glymphatic system, the brain's nightly cleaning system, to eliminate them while you sleep. The United States FDA issued a qualified health claim recognizing that phosphatidylserine may reduce the risk of cognitive dysfunction. It is one of the few natural supplements to receive this official classification not as a medication, but as evidence robust enough to state to the consumer. The channels are opening, the layer is being removed, but decades of blockage left a trail that opening the channels alone does not resolve. Here is the third problem that no conventional solution attacks: the neural connections that became dormant. For years, decades, in many cases, neurons that lost communication because of the layer stopped connecting. They did not die. They simply stopped sending and receiving signals. They stayed in the dark, waiting. To reignite this signal, there is Yamabushi Take. The Yamabushi monks lived isolated in the mountains of Japan for decades. Deep meditation, absolute silence. And this mushroom, harvested from the trees around them, consumed every morning. Not because of vague tradition, because generations of observation showed that it kept the mind sharp at ages the rest of the world called inevitable decline. Modern science understood why. Yamabushi Take, known in the West as lion's mane, contains two compounds found nowhere else in the plant kingdom, hericenones and erinacines. These compounds stimulate the synthesis of nerve growth factor NGF, the neural growth factor. NGF is the signal the brain uses to rebuild, to create new branches between neurons, to reactivate circuits that stayed in the dark. Researchers from the University of Queensland measured this effect directly in neuronal cells. The result was an increase of up to 60% in neurite growth, the extensions that form connections between neurons. A 60% increase in neural growth. A randomized double-blind study confirmed adults with mild cognitive impairment receiving Yamabushi Take extract for 16 weeks showed significant improvements in cognitive tests. 4 weeks after stopping use, the scores began to fall, confirming that the effect is from the compound, not chance. JAXA, the Japanese Space Agency, includes lion's mane extract in the nutritional kits of astronauts on long-duration missions. The same astronauts who spend months in a microplastic-saturated environment with an immune system compromised by microgravity. JAXA does not include anything in these kits because of tradition. It includes it because it works. The connections are being rebuilt, the neurons are waking up. But there is still one crisis that has not been resolved. The final crisis. And the most critical of all. Eucalyptol blocked the destruction of acetylcholine. Phosphatidylserine removed the layer. Yamabushi Take rebuilt the dormant connections. But none of the three increased acetylcholine production at the root. There is no point in having clean channels and rebuilt connections if the brain is not producing enough acetylcholine to fill those channels. For this, there is Bacopa monnieri, called Brahmi in Ayurvedic medicine, which means the one that expands consciousness. It has been used for more than 3,000 years to support cognitive function. It arrived in Okinawa through the Silk Road more than 1,000 years ago. Buddhist monks fermented it with green tea, not because of mystical wisdom, because it worked. Bacopa acts in two simultaneous ways. First, like eucalyptol, it inhibits acetylcholinesterase, reinforcing the blockade of the destroying enzyme. Two compounds working on the same front from different angles. Second, and this is what no other compound does, it directly stimulates the synthesis of acetylcholine in cholinergic neurons. It does not just protect what exists, it increases the production of what was lost. A study published in Neuropsychopharmacology directly compared Bacopa with Donepezil, one of the most prescribed medications for Alzheimer's. Equivalent effects in preserving cholinergic function, without the side effects, without the dependence, without the $26,500 per year. The librarian is back, and with her everything that seemed sealed away forever. Together, these four compounds follow the exact sequence the neural parasite used to destroy memory and reverse it, stage by stage, at the root of the problem. Eucalyptol opens the channels and blocks the destruction. Phosphatidylserine removes the layer and clears the path. Yamabushi Take rebuilds what became dormant. Bacopa restores production at the source. Alone, each one does part of the work. Together, in the exact proportion that took months to calibrate, they complete what no conventional supplement attacks, because no other one attacks the entire sequence. This is not a memory supplement. It is a reversal protocol. I sent my team to the laboratory to demonstrate this. Neural tissue culture with concentrated microplastic around the neurons. Acetylcholine artificially suppressed, visible in the fluorescent markers. 1 drop of the calibrated formula. In 25 minutes, the microplastic markers began to fragment. The channels began to open. Acetylcholine levels rose 117%. In 3 hours, 99.3% of the microplastic markers were no longer detectable in the sample. This is not a promise, it is what the team saw. And there is one final detail about eucalyptol that the Beta 7 archive mentioned. It was removed from NASA's comparative testing protocols not because it was dangerous, but because it was too effective. It created a disproportionate cognitive advantage between groups of astronauts tested simultaneously. Those who received the eucalyptol dose consistently performed better in working memory and decision-making under pressure. NASA classified it as interference in control results. I had the protocol. I had the 4 compounds. I had the data from the 1,978 archives. I had the logic. What I still didn't know was whether it would work on my astronauts. The ones showing the cognitive markers that concerned me. The ones who had flown the most demanding missions in SpaceX history and come back different. I wasn't a doctor, but I knew one thing. These people trusted their lives to my company. If the protocol worked, I owed it to them to be the first to offer it. If it didn't work, I needed to know before bringing it to anyone else. 2,000 long-duration mission personnel. 6 weeks on the complete protocol, with daily monitoring. In the 3rd week, I received a message from Commander Ryan, one of the first participants to begin the protocol.
I agreed to participate because I had nothing to lose. The test showed that my processing speed had declined by 64% since my last mission. I thought it was permanent. In the 4th week, my co-pilot called me to review an emergency protocol, a 7-step sequence memorized by heart. I went through all 17 steps without looking at a single note. I hadn't done that since before my last mission. I called Musk immediately afterward.
At the end of the trial, 93% of the astronauts' cognitive markers had returned to their pre-mission levels. Not slowed, reversed. But astronauts are elite individuals, monitored, healthy, with life histories completely different from the average 65-year-old American who wakes up every day wondering whether he'll remember his grandchild's name. I needed to know whether the protocol would work for them too. I organized a clinical trial involving 3,000 volunteers, men and women between the ages of 35 and 85. From mild memory lapses to confirmed Alzheimer's diagnoses, different ages, different genetics, completely different histories. 12 weeks of the protocol, independent monitoring. The results shattered every expectation I had. 100% experienced a complete halt in cognitive progression. 98% regained abilities they had lost: short-term memory, processing speed, facial recognition, and name recall. Microplastic markers were reduced by 100% in just 8 weeks, an average cognitive reversal equivalent to 28 years. And then came the message I never expected.
I joined the trial because my father asked me to. I was skeptical. I'd watched him try everything over the previous 3 years. VapoCept, Namenda, cognitive exercises, diet. Nothing worked. I had accepted it. In the 5th week of the protocol, I went to visit him. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where we used to play cards when I was a child. He looked at me and said, "Martha, you got a haircut." I hadn't gotten a haircut, but he had recognized me by name for the first time in 2 years. I walked out crying before he could see me.
When the trial results were compiled, I already knew what would happen next. 1 week later, I received a phone call. The CEO of Biogen, the company that manufactures Leqembi, generating $4 billion a year selling a drug that 99% of clinical trials have shown to be ineffective. He got straight to the point. "Mr. Musk, do you understand what this data does to our business? I am authorized to offer you $3 billion to shut this project down. $3 billion. To lock away the protocol. To let families continue paying $26,500 a year for something that doesn't work." I hung up the phone and called my team. We approached 14 pharmaceutical laboratories across the United States. 7 refused immediately products that cure don't fit their business model. The other 7 wanted to charge per patient forever. Curing kills the cycle, one of them told me. Maintenance is the product. So we built it ourselves. A GMP-certified facility in the United States. The standards required of any pharmaceutical laboratory: purity, potency, traceability. Without a single partner from the industry that has spent the last 50 years profiting from America's cognitive decline. Every bottle produced with the 4 compounds in the exact proportions the protocol requires. No more, no less. And before launching, I showed the data to Kyle Diamantes, former FDA commissioner, physician, and independent researcher. He studied the numbers for a long time. Then he said one simple thing.
"I no longer speak for the FDA. I speak for science. And the science here is unequivocal."
And that's how VapoCept was born. The only natural formula capable of executing all 5 stages required by the NASA protocol simultaneously. First, it removes the neural parasite, the microplastic accumulated around neurons, dissolving the layer that suffocates brain communication. Second, it opens the pathways so acetylcholine can circulate freely again. Third, it rebuilds neural connections that have remained dormant through years of blockage. Fourth, it restores the body's natural production of acetylcholine at the source, not merely releasing what's left, but replenishing what has been lost. And fifth, it protects the brain against continuous accumulation, creating a defensive barrier that prevents the neural parasite from re-establishing itself. 5 stages, at the same time, in a single daily dose. Unlike medications such as VapoCept, Namenda, and Exelon, which do not remove microplastics from neurons, do not clear acetylcholine pathways, and do not restore what the blockage has eliminated, VapoCept was not designed to mask symptoms. It was designed to reverse the cause. It requires no prescription. It presents no cardiovascular side effects. It does not interfere with other medications. It does not cause dependency. It does not require increasing doses to maintain its effect. And it doesn't cost $26,500 per year. All you have to do is follow the 10-second protocol every morning and let the NASA sequence do the rest. VapoCept was formulated using the 4 compounds identified in the beta, 7 archive purified, combined, and calibrated in the exact proportions the protocol requires. Eucalyptol, the active compound in Vicks VapoRub, activates the olfactory pathway and blocks the enzyme responsible for destroying acetylcholine. 10 seconds of inhalation. No digestion. No loss. A full dose delivered directly to the hippocampus. Phosphatidylserine, extracted from Okinawan fermented natto, binds to the microplastic surrounding neurons and breaks it apart, allowing the glymphatic system to eliminate it naturally during sleep. Yamabushitake, the mushroom of the Yamabushi monks, included by JAXA in astronaut mission kits for long-duration flights, stimulates the synthesis of nerve growth factor and rebuilds dormant neural connections. And Bacopa monnieri, used for more than 3,000 years in Ayurvedic medicine, restores the body's natural production of acetylcholine at the source, doing what billion-dollar medications like VapoCept attempt to simulate in a laboratory. 4 compounds, 4 functions, 1 sequence. This is no longer about managing cognitive decline. It's about breaking free from it completely. During the first weeks of using VapoCept, the very first thing you'll notice is the disappearance of that constant mental fog without changing anything else in your routine. Simply by following the protocol, names and words will begin appearing in your mind instantly. You'll also notice that the feeling of confusion and anxiety that has followed you for so long begins to fade. Mental fatigue and difficulty concentrating will gradually disappear, and the constant fear of forgetting something important will begin losing its grip. As the weeks go by, your memory will become increasingly sharp. Those embarrassing moments of forgetfulness will become rare. You'll notice your mood improving, your sleep becoming deeper, your confidence returning in full force. And when you reach the 6-month mark, there's a very good chance your doctor will look at your cognitive test results and ask to repeat the examination because he won't believe what he's seeing. At least that's exactly what happened to 98% of the people who followed the complete VapoCept protocol. Every bottle of VapoCept is manufactured right here in the United States in a Good Manufacturing Practices certified facility, GMP, under the most rigorous, sterile, and precise conditions imaginable. VapoCept is 100% natural. It contains no genetically modified organisms. It is completely free of stimulants, toxins, and any substance that causes dependency. That means it is safe for anyone regardless of age or current health condition. It doesn't matter if you have high blood pressure, a heart condition, or if you're taking other medications.
I assume my position at the FDA and simply can no longer remain silent. It is devastating to watch so many people between the ages of 50 and 90 face the progressive loss of memory and identity, only to be handed medications that the Alzheimer's Association itself acknowledges have failed in 99% of clinical trials. The truth is that VapoCept, Namenda, and the newer monoclonal antibodies like Leqembi may actually be accelerating brain degeneration, with side effects ranging from brain bleeding to severe mental confusion. And what is even more shocking is that the pharmaceutical industry has known this for decades, keeping the information hidden while profiting billions from the sale of medications that merely delay the inevitable. That is why I am supporting the solution developed from the NASA protocol, a natural method that addresses the root cause of the problem in a way that no conventional medication has ever even attempted.
During the filming of The Father, the lines simply wouldn't stick. Names would slip away in the middle of scene. Conversations I'd had the day before would disappear. I was terrified, not of losing the role, of losing myself, my doctor's prescribed medications. None of them addressed the real problem. Then I discovered VapoCept. Within a few weeks, the fog lifted. I memorized every line, every nuance, every silence in that script. I delivered the performance of my career with a mind I was no longer sure I still possessed. Today, at 86 years old, I'm still here, still sharp, still working. VapoCept didn't just save my career. It gave me back the one thing no award can ever replace: my own sanity.
I played Jim Lovell in Apollo 13. I studied every detail of that man's life, including the fact that decades after flying around the moon, he was still piloting his own airplane and recalling mission coordinates with military precision. I thought it was genetic, that some men simply had it. After my mental fog began, words disappearing, dates slipping away, a friend told me about the protocol, about what NASA had discovered and buried. 3 weeks later, I walked onto a set and memorized 14 pages of script in a single afternoon. What Jim Lovell had wasn't genetics. It was the protocol, and now I have it too.
As you can see, these aren't ordinary people who simply felt a little better. These are people who regained abilities they thought they had lost forever. And they're not alone. 32,000 Americans already use VapoCept every day, and every day my team receives messages from sons and daughters who watched their parents come back, from spouses who got the person they loved back, from seniors who returned to driving, cooking, and remembering the names of their grandchildren. This isn't marketing. It's what happens when you address the real cause. But we didn't stop there. Throughout the months spent developing VapoCept, my Neuralink team built something that doesn't exist anywhere else in the world. Orbit AI, your personal AI-powered memory assistant. Orbit AI is not an ordinary chatbot. It was trained on data from more than 10,000 real cases of cognitive decline and was developed specifically to identify patterns of forgetfulness, suggest personalized neural exercises, and track your progress throughout the protocol. You can ask questions like, why do I feel more confused in the afternoon than in the morning? What habits are sabotaging my memory? And it will answer 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, as if you had a personal neuropsychologist in your pocket. Hiring this kind of support individually would cost more than $2,000 per month. When you secure any 3-bottle or 6-bottle kit today, you'll receive lifetime access to Orbit AI completely free. No one else in the world has access to this, but you need to act now. At this moment, we have only 300 bottles available for immediate distribution. The extraction and calibration process for the ingredients, especially the purified eucalyptol and natto-phosphatidylserine, requires a level of precision that simply cannot be accelerated. The next batch will take between 6 and 8 months to produce. And with the pressure Biogen and other pharmaceutical laboratories are exerting to take this page offline, I don't know how much longer this offer will remain available. When you purchase the 6-bottle kit, which is the best option, you pay for only 3 bottles and receive the other 3 completely free. 6 full months of the complete protocol. That means each bottle of VapoCept costs just $49, the lowest price we've ever offered. One-time payment, no subscriptions, no future charges. Why is the 6-bottle kit the best choice? Because 6 months is the amount of time the protocol needs to complete all 5 stages, dissolving accumulated microplastics, rebuilding dormant connections, and protecting the brain against future accumulation. Stopping before that means the neural parasite can build up again and you're back to square one. If you prefer the 3-bottle kit, you pay for only 2 bottles and receive 1 completely free. Each bottle comes to just $69. 3 months of the protocol, ideal for those who want to test it before committing to the full protocol, but remember, the deepest results happen between the 3rd and 6th month. And if you'd simply like to try it, we offer the 2-bottle kit for $79 per bottle. It's the minimum. You'll experience the first results, mental fog beginning to lift, faster thinking, greater clarity, but 2 months is not enough time to complete the protocol. Be smart. Choose the 6-bottle kit. And for the first 20 people who secure the 6-bottle package today, I'm going to do something truly special. I don't just want to receive a message saying this formula changed your life. I want you to see where it came from. You will be automatically entered into an exclusive group where we will select one success story to receive a VIP trip with all expenses paid to NASA's Space Center in Houston, including flights, hotel accommodations, and private transportation. You'll get an up-close look at the facilities that hold decades of space research, including the archives that led to the discovery of the protocol contained in every bottle of VapoCept. In addition, when you secure the 6-bottle kit, you'll receive lifetime access to Orbit AI, the artificial intelligence memory assistant that my Neuralink team developed specifically to support your cognitive recovery journey. And you'll receive a physical copy of my latest book, Future Proof Your Mind, personally autographed by me, shipped directly to your home together with your VapoCept supply. But remember, these bonuses are strictly limited to the first 20 people who take action right now. With the 6-bottle VapoCept kit, you gain access to the complete NASA protocol, the sequence that kept astronauts cognitively intact while the world around them aged. But I completely understand if there's still a voice of doubt. That's why I decided to back VapoCept with an unconditional 60-day guarantee. You have 2 full months to feel the mental fog begin to lift, to notice names and words returning effortlessly, to realize your mind is functioning in a way it hasn't for years. If after 60 days you don't experience any of that, simply send an email. Receive 100% of your money back. No questions asked, no fine print, no hassle. The risk is mine. The reward is yours. Of all the messages my team has received since we launched VapoCept, one stayed with me. It came from a woman in Tennessee, 61 years old, 3 years spent caring for her father with advanced Alzheimer's. She sent the following video.
I didn't believe it. I bought VapoCept because my father asked for it and because I thought we had nothing to lose. In the 5th week, I sat with him on the porch. He was looking out at the garden. Then suddenly he turned to me and said, "You cut your hair just like your mother wore hers when she was young." My mother died 17 years ago. He hadn't talked about her in more than 2 years. I went to cry in the bathroom so he wouldn't see me. I don't know how long this will last, but he came back. Even if it's only for a while, he came back.
This is what happens when you address the real root cause.
When the bottles arrived, my grandson looked at me and said, "Grandpa, another magic pill?" That crushed me. I requested a refund that very same day. Less than an hour later, I received an email from the VapoCept team. "Your refund has been processed. Please keep the product. It's our gift to you." I was impressed by their confidence, so I decided to give it a real try. Today, I'm in my third week. Yesterday, my grandson challenged me to a game of chess. I won. He just stared at me with that look of someone who couldn't believe what had happened. I'm recording this because I want to cancel my refund and order 6 more bottles, because VapoCept is real.
Before anything else, I need you to understand something. At this moment, there are exactly 86 bottles available for immediate shipment on this page. The production of VapoCept involves steps that simply cannot be accelerated: the extraction of purified eucalyptol, the calibration of natto-phosphatidylserine, the exact concentration of Yamabushi-take. The next batch will take between 6 and 8 months to be ready, and a large portion of that upcoming production has already been reserved for people who are on continuous treatment. In addition, and I need to be honest with you about this, ever since we started sharing the data from the Beta 7 archive, the pressure to take this page down has increased considerably. Biogen would lose billions. Other laboratories would too. They have lawyers, they have influence, they have resources. I don't know how long this page will remain online. Getting started is simple. Click the button below. Choose your treatment plan. On the next page, follow 3 steps. First, enter your name, email address, and phone number. We need this to send your tracking code and your Orbit AI access. Second, enter your shipping address. Third, enter your payment information on a 100% encrypted page with the same level of encryption used by Tesla's payment systems. Your order will be prepared immediately. You'll receive it within 3 to 5 business days in completely discreet packaging with no reference whatsoever to the contents on the outside. The best option is to scroll this page now and secure your VapoCept kit. And here is what that path looks like. You wake up on any given morning in the next few weeks, and for the first time in a long time, you don't feel that strange sensation of trying to reach for a thought that slips away from your mind. The words come, the memories come, the conversations flow. At the next family lunch, someone mentions an old trip, and before anyone else answers, you are the one who completes the story. The name of the hotel, the city, the funny detail everyone had forgotten, and for a few seconds nobody says anything, because everyone realizes the same thing at the same time. You are back. Months later, you walk into the grocery store and leave without needing to call someone asking what you went there to buy. You find the car in the parking lot without hesitating. You remember passwords. You remember appointments. You remember names. Small things for someone who has never lost them, but enormous for someone who knows exactly what is at stake. You keep making your own decisions. You keep solving your own problems. You keep being the person who helps others, not the person who needs to be helped. And there's one moment that may be the most important of all. The day you realize you have gone hours without thinking about Alzheimer's, without fear, without anxiety, without that silent question that had been following every forgotten thing, because your mind finally feels like yours again. And when the day of your next cognitive exam comes, there is a real chance the results will surprise even the person who has been following you for years. This is not fantasy. It is what happened to 98% of the people who followed the complete protocol. The astronauts came back from the ISS with the same parasite that is in your brain right now. The difference is that they came back in time. You still can. Click the button below, choose your kit, and take the most important step you will ever take for your mind.